Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Greetings, race fans, and welcome to Apex Racing TV's presentation of the Radical Esports Cup. J.R. Gregory here on the call with a huge shout out to our colleague Avery McDonald, who not only spotted me last week, but had to fly solo at that thriller at Road America. And next to me in the commentary booth, Racing Ron Mons, and in the production carrier, our friend and colleague Joshua Wilkie. And the star of today's show, the Radical SR10 425 horsepower Ford EcoBoost 4-cylinder turbo, only 725 kilos, and with no traction control and no anti-lock brakes, is one of the purest sports car experiences on the iRacing service. And mastering this car will make you better in every car that you drive. And folks, we are showing the top split of the public server here, as we do every Friday at 2100 GMT. So if you want to give these cars a try and join us here on one of our broadcasts, show up, sign up, and if you make the top split, you are going to appear on YouTube. And the competition and the broadcasts are getting better and better every week. And the upcoming schedule, although the season is winding down, still two great tracks left: Sebring and the season finale at Nordschleife. But this week is week 10, Phillip Island. Grand Prix track located, as you might suspect, on Phillip Island in Victoria, Australia. It is approaching its 100-year anniversary, racing having begun here in 1928. Past host to a plethora of sports car racing, including Australian supercars, and is currently a major motorcycle venue. Today's configuration, which was paved in 1978, is 4.4 clicks, 2.7 miles, and 12 turns. And Ron, I got to throw down some laps out here today and participated in the race immediately prior to this one about 2 hours ago. And I got to say, this track is a blast. It is fairly simple, I guess, by modern standards, but it's one of those tracks that you will learn in about 10 or 15 minutes and maybe take a lifetime to master, and was an absolute hoot in these Radicals. So what are you looking for out of these guys today?
Well, I think I'm going to be looking out for the challenges that are going to face these drivers here this afternoon. This track may seem simple on paper, but with 12 corners packed in to this 2.76 mile long circuit, it's really tricky to keep the car on the road. Beautiful timing for me to mention that quote, as we have our Apex Racing TV colleague Avery McDonald run wide coming out the final corner. But there's just a whole lot of challenge packed in to this track. Some fast corners and medium speed corners. Trying to find a good overtaking opportunity as well is key. be some hard braking zones at the disposal of these drivers here this afternoon, but I think for the drivers up and down the 21 car grid that we have at our hands this afternoon, I think they're going to have a blast driving around this track. This one, it's a roller coaster. You got elevation change, fast corners, and long flat out blasts. It is a racer's dream, and I think all the drivers up and down the grid are really gonna have some fun today.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, Ron. And one thing that kind of stands out about this track is there are a few of these long, constant radius, kind of carousel type corners, and these radicals have a tendency to understeer through those long corners, and the temptation and the easy way through is just to ride that understeer and torture the front tires, but these cars will blow the front tires off. So you got to take every opportunity you can to trail brake on entry and rotate the car with the brakes and take some of the pressure off of the front tires. I chatted a little bit with Jorge Gonzaga, who, as you can see, is sitting in P3 right now in qualifying, and he had some concerns about tire wear in this one because of those long corners. So we'll see how tire wear goes when we get towards the end of the race. If we start to see cars plowing through corners and pushing wide, we'll know that that driver has not taken care of their fronts. And we're riding along now with John Pethick out of UK and I in one of the heavy braking zones. We're braking down into turn 4 here and headed into one of these carousel type left-handers where you've got a trail brake on entry, patience, and feed on the throttle at the right time. And yeah, this track is an absolute hoot. And we're also going to see some massive slipstream if we stay with this driver just a bit longer. Josh, I'm going to talk about the most important corner on the track. We're coming into another low-speed second gear right-hander, and I'm going to tell you, the commentator's curse has many forms, folks, and you just saw one right there. But here is where the main straightaway starts, right there, out of that last tight turn 10 as a right-hander, and turn 11 is where the straightaway starts. You are on the throttle, running it through the gears. It doesn't look straight on paper, but that's where the acceleration begins, and we are going to be flying by the time we get down to turn 1, Duhan corner, and we are going to see some slipstream and some contested entries there into turn 1 due to the powerful slipstream effect of these radicals. So qualifying winding down now, and we'll have your grid for you momentarily. But as we wait for that, let me run through the season top 10 with you. And Ron, listen to this top 4. James Berry, Andreas Friedrich, Jorge Gonzaga, and Myron Ianni. And tell our audience what those 4 drivers have in common.
They are ridiculously fast in these Radical SR10s. I think that's the only way I can describe it. They're the heavy hitters in the series week in and week out, and they're going to be heavy hitters here today.
Yeah, and not only that, they are teammates. So that team has locked out the top 4 on the season. That's going to be followed by Braun Reitinen, Larson Kielis, Vitorino, and Leon Hernandez. But here is your grid. Christoph Lipp, the alien, the only driver it looks like who's dipping into the 123s, will be on pole next to Ryan Odo. Jorge Gonzaga next to Andreas Friedrich, James Berry next to Sally Reitinen, Sorensen next to Bjorklund, Dennis Kyriakopoulos there in P9 next to Kjetil Larson in 10, Paolo Gori next to Andre Castro there in 11 and 12. There'll be Gordon Hausch next to Heinz Braun, John Pethick next to Luca Leone, Mika Hulkinen next to Ayers, Armstrong next to our colleague Avery McDonald there in P20, and Andrew Karlowski bringing up the rear in P21. And we are on the clock here. Looks like Kyriakopoulos is holding up the show right now, and he has just appeared on the grid. So we are going to be going green here momentarily. That is Lipp in the number 3 car that will have the inside entry into turn 1, and here we go. And we are green. Looks like a clean start so far. It's going to remain Lipp from Odo from Gonzaga, as the front cars are going to try to line up here on this entry to turn 1. And when we get up to pace here, Ron, oh no, I spoke too soon, side by side through that sweeping first corner. And that is going to be flat out when these tires warm up a little bit and we burn off a little bit of fuel.
And look at Odo feeling so racy early on into this race and taking the lead of it as Ryan Odo, the driver from the US, in his first Radical official start, but not his first Radical SR10 start. We'll touch on that in a little bit. Taking the lead in commanding fashion in the early stage of this race. Meanwhile, 2x2 throughout a vast majority of this field, heading through the hairpin of turn number 4, one of the prime overtaking opportunities around this track. But some bold stuff from the driver of the number 13 car. He may have the unlucky number 13, but it was a lucky escape for him to escape the opening corners of this race with the lead. Fantastic stuff from Odo as they head through turn number 7 and 8.
Yeah, that was incredible. It's now Odo from Friedrich from Barry. And Ron, who is missing from that list? Christoph Lipp has bended, and somehow I missed it. He must have gone off there in turn 1, but he looks like he has taken a tow and is out. The presumed favorite in this one with a very fast pole lap doesn't get to turn 2 before he has retired, and Odo taking advantage of that. And we'll come up with a replay of the problem with Lipp as soon as we can. But holy cow, nobody expecting that out of Lipp this morning.
Oh, absolutely not. I feel like we have to find a replay in the not-too-distant future because that is a big breaking story from Christoph Lipp, a driver who we usually see never put a foot wrong in these Radical SR10 races. The fact he put a foot wrong and all of his feet wrong and ended up out of this race so early on is an absolute shock, and I think we're going to find that replay to see exactly what happened to Christoph Lipp in the not-too-distant future. He started this race from the pole, as you said, JR, but just in the span of barely any time at all, things went from bad to absolutely worse. I'm curious if it was that side-by-side action between himself and Odo that ended in absolute disaster for him. You can see the 3-car going off the track. That is Christoph Lipp, and that was the incident that I believe was on the outside of turn number 2. We'll try and find possibly a better angle of that to see exactly what happened to Christoph Lipp to send him off the circuit. I have a feeling, though, it may have been that side-by-side action heading through the first 2 corners at the start of this race. Again, as we saw, as a viewer saw here on Apex Racing TV, we don't have rolling starts, we have standing starts, and the tires are extremely cold at the start, and I think this side-by-side action and running off the racing groove may have been the reason why Christoph Lipp binned it.
Yeah, here we see him. He just washes out into the grass there. Wow, and a very uncharacteristic mistake from Lipp. He is at alien level. He's over 6K I rating and a 499 safety rating, and he is gone just like that. And Ron, that is one of those corners on this track. There's a lot of kind of dastardly design throughout the Phillip Island course, and that is one of them. That turn, I guess it's turn 2, is decreasing radius. You've got a long, slow trail brake on entry, and if you go in a little bit too hot, don't apply enough brakes, especially on cold tires, you end up in the barrier as Lipp did there. A shocking start for Lipp.
Oh, that is a heartbreaker for him. However, with the commiserations towards Christoph Lipp, it is absolute celebrations for Ryan Odo. He's still going to have to hold on to it between now and the end of this race, as we see Heinz Braun trying to cut his way back through the field. He didn't have the best qualifying result in the world in that number 6 car. Won in somewhat controversial fashion about a month ago at Road Atlanta, but he's usually fast in these Radical SR10s, but he's on the back foot in this stacked SR10 race. We've usually seen some splits throughout this season, however, here at Phillip Island, that track, which doesn't really get too much use, I believe, in my time covering this series, which dates all the way back to season 1 of 2023. This is the first time the Radical E-Cup, Radical Esports Cup, formerly known as the Radical Racing Challenge, has visited here at Phillip Island, so it doesn't get a whole lot of use in these SR10s. But speaking of use, that's Friedrich running wide coming out of the final corner and losing a spot to Barry.
Yeah, now it's going to be Odo from Barry from Friedrich, and you see that slipstream going to work now. Barry within about 0.9 of Odo in the lead, so Barry is going to want to crank that down and give himself a crack at a pass on their next trip down that long front straightaway. We're already on lap 4, Ron. These laps somewhat short. They're going to tick by pretty quickly now, and a train forming at the front with Odo, Barry, Friedrich, Sorensen, Gonzaga, Bjorklund, Reitnen. I mean, look at that timing tower. Everything is red and yellow. These cars are packed together all the way down to P12, where Kyriakopoulos sits after losing 3 positions from his qualifying start, but my goodness, nonstop action here at Phillip Island. Such a great track, and as Ron said, a little underattended here, and I'd certainly encourage you to maybe take advantage of week 13 and give this track a try, because it is a lot of fun. It's way tougher than it looks, and you got to take a lot of risk on some off-camber crazy braking zones over crests of hills and stuff like that. Very well designed course here.
I think while we're taking a look at our right now still running in P1 driver, that being Ryan Odo in that number 13 car, I think I should probably tell a little bit about it, because all three of us on this broadcast, our producer Josh, myself, being in the commentary booth in some of the races Odo has done, and you, JR, sharing the racetrack with him in the Radical Americas Championship, which you can see sporadically on Sundays here on Apex Racing TV. Odo, he's one of the very quick drivers in that series. He is part of the 4 horsemen that really dominate those races week in and week out. Some other drivers that we've seen in the past in these Radical Esports Cup races, the likes of Eric Harmon, Lucas Vieira, and Franco Sanchez, are the other drivers that make up those 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in those Radical Americas Championship races all throughout the season. Odo has been very fast, and he's not an old driver either. He's a young kid. I would say he's younger than me, which is fresh considering I'm 19. He is a quick kid, and he is proving that here in this official races. I think we had some side-by-side action a little bit farther in the back, this time involving Castro and
yeah, and just to follow up a little on Odo, I was going to mention, as you did, Ron, after hearing him interviewed a couple times, he is on the younger side, a bit of a child prodigy. And the amazing thing about him watching his race as his ability at his age to stay calm. I mean, he is under pressure from some of the best Radical drivers in the world, driving side by side with them, having to dice it out with them, and has performed very, very well, kept his cool and kept mistakes to a minimum. So Odo really showing his stuff here. Although look at that gap now, Barry cranking down on him. Barry now has the fast lap. He's the first driver into the 123s, throwing down a 123.97. And we'll see what Barry can do here. He is going to be within striking distance when they hit that front straightaway. And here, as I said, all accelerating out of that final turn 10. Foot to the floor, and we'll have to watch that gap and see if Barry can crank that down and make something happen on turn 1.
I believe as that's been going on, very close heading into the braking zone at turn number 4. Heinz Braun has had some sort of issue. He's lost a whole lot of time in the past few moments and has dropped down to P13. So we'll keep our eyes on this battle, maybe load up the replay to see what happened to Heinz Braun in the past few moments. I believe it was heading through turns number 1 and 2 where that incident happened. Of course, turn number 2, it's already called out a driver. It called out Christoph Phillip at the very beginning of the race, and I think this will be the replay to see exactly what happened to Heinz Braun in the early stages of this lap.
Yeah, and Braun maybe getting a little help there. Braun, a tough defender and is not averse to rubbing, and you know, it's a double-edged sword. Rubbing giveth and rubbing taketh away. And there you see a little hip check there onto the AstroTurf, not able to put the power down, and getting absolutely swamped there out of that corner.
I think we're going to follow him for a little bit more, possibly. That was a little bit of extracurricular contact, it must be said, but Heinz Braun had another moment. He was running a little bit farther away from the cars around him. You can see him a little bit quick, way too quick, hanging into turn number 2, taking a trip into the grass and the gravel, hitting the bumps on the outside. That's not going to do his spine any favors, but there's Heinz Braun with a quick little off track, a small little detour on the outside of turn number 2, and that's going to cost him a little bit of time. And speaking of a little bit of time, it's 1 second separating the front 4 in this race. Odo, Barry, Friedrich, and Sorensen, they are all incredibly fast, and I mentioned the Radical Americas Championship. A lot of the drivers that we see here are also mainstays in the Radical European Championship. Barry, Friedrich, and Sorensen are very fast drivers in that series on Sundays as well. And Lasse Sorensen, the IGL Coatings and Sandra Track School driver in that number 7 car, he is very fast. We have seen many a race from him, and he's usually at the north end of the field. However, going back through my mind, this is the first time we've ever really seen him at the north end of the field, and considering how close it is with this front 4 pack, he is definitely not out of striking distance to maybe take the lead and the win in this race with still well over half the race left to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Riding with Sorensen now, looking forward at Odo, Barry, and Friedrich. Odo under pressure. Barry's polishing his bumper. Odo weaving to try to break the draft. And man, look at that slipstream. Nothing that Ryan can do. Barry's going to have the inside line here into turn 1, but Odo fighting back into turn 2. Barry unable to make it stick there. And that's what I was talking about, Ron. Ice water in the veins of this young man. Look at him fight off Barry. That was epic.
Yeah, he is calm, cool, and collected, feeling the pressure from one of the fastest drivers in this series. However, they're still racing hard. You can see side by side now heading into turn number 4. Barry on the outside, Odo on the inside, and Odo is still going to hold him off. Incredible defensive driving from the driver of the number 13 car. And look at the pack behind them right now. You can see between the leader, Odo, all the way down to Kjetil Larsen and P number 9. This entire pack is covered by barely any air, with about 0.8 of a second being the biggest gap in the top 10. This is incredible stuff that we're seeing, and it's not even that we're early on into this race. We have 8 laps on the board. There's the 8th lap that we're on right now of this 18-lap race. 11 minutes in, and the field is still covered by barely any air. This is some incredible stuff that we're seeing at Phillip Island right now, and I'll tell you what, this series hasn't really visited Phillip Island in the past, but with the racing that we're seeing right now, I really wish we could return, because this is some incredible stuff right now, and it is setting up for a fantastic second half of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody out there that doesn't have this track, shame on you. Go buy it. This place is awesome. And here's Barry again. He's going to stick it inside of Odo. Will Odo have the defensive line on the inside of 2? Oh, maybe a little net code contact there. Oh, my goodness. Barry into the kitty litter. Yeah, we're going to have a look at that, folks. It sure looked to me like there was plenty of air between those cars, but Barry's car looked like it had taken a little tap there from Odo. So tough stuff there. And Odo still under pressure. Now he's got 2 of Barry's teammates behind, and Sorensen sniffing around wanting a piece of this. It is Odo from Friedrich, from Gonzaga, from Sorensen, from Castro, and we get a little line of 5 forming up here, and we're going to see what kind of attacks happen on the next run down that front straightaway. And looks like Reitinen has joined the crowd as well, as we're getting a pretty nice little train forming. And I love this corner. It's diabolical, as I was telling you, over the crest, decreasing radius, then hard braking into this hard right-hander, and the front straight starts right here. Power down, full throttle, running it through the gears, and you got to hit the line just perfect, but you are flat out onto this front straightaway to get that run down into turn 1. Well, let's see what Odo can do with Friedrich now behind with a 0.5 second gap.
I'll tell you what, these drivers are getting fantastic experience not only around this track, but around their competitors. I don't think there's any driver up and down this field that is running in no man's land. Everyone has a car either right in front of them in their windscreen, invisible windscreen here in these Radical SR10s, or right in their rear view mirror. It is some incredibly close stuff that we're seeing up and down this field, but the front pack is incredibly intense right now. And I think we're going to take a look at a driver that fell out of that front pack. This is what happened to Barry. It was some bold stuff going down the inside of Ryan Odo, heading into turn number 1, and then heading through 2. There was a little bit of netcode contact. You could see that jolt of the number 4 car of James Barry. Barry is a driver that we rarely, if ever, see make mistakes. Talk about ice cold water running through the veins of Ryan Odo. James Barry is another calm, cool, and collected individual in this series week in and week out. So to see him have a moment like that, it was definitely some sort of extracurricular activities going on to lead to that. Barry, who very briefly took the lead of that race in that maneuver, drops down to P10. Heartbreaker for the Brit. Even though he has a big gap in the official championships, that's still gonna sting if you're the Brit.
Yeah, absolutely. And Barry well ahead, Ron. As you said, he's 300 plus points in P1, so he is going to be our repeat champion here in the Radical Esports Cup. But yeah, just a slight error like that while battling for the lead, that is never fun. And here's Castro. He's going to take advantage of that slipstream, going to try the outside into turn 1, which may be a good move here. We're seeing that the entry to turn 2 is a good place to make something happen, but Sorensen slams the door on him. Meanwhile, there's Bjorklund looking forward at Reiten in their part of this train, and now Larson, you see him coming up in the background, and Kyriakopoulos now, you can see him off in the distance. So a little bit of a pileup starting here, and there's Bjorklund. He's going to try outside move here. There's some more cars side by side ahead, and my goodness, Phillip Island, folks, buy this track. This is nuts.
Oh, I don't think Lasse Sorensen is very happy with how he was raced by Castro side by side heading through turn number 4. And I'll tell you what, JR, when I saw the move that they were pulling off on each other, I did not have a good feeling about that at all. And we're going to look at a replay of what happened involving Andre Castro and that number 2 car. It was a bold and audacious move with barely any air on that inside line, making some contact and breaking out the hip check heading through turn number 4. I mean, got the move done to move his way up into 4th. However, the driver right behind him of Lasse Sorensen, I don't think he liked that. We saw him flashing the headlights. Lasse Sorensen may feel a little bit cheated with that maneuver, and in all of that, he's been sent back into a frickin' hornet's nest right behind him. We've got Castro, the man who we're following right now in the 2 car, and we've got Sorensen, Reinen, Bjorklund, and Larson covered by barely any air right behind. It's only 1.3 seconds separating Castro in 4th to Larson in 8th, and taking the entire field into consideration, the top 10 are only separated by 7.7 seconds, and if Barry didn't have that off that he had earlier on, it probably would only be 5.2 seconds as Kyriakopoulos was running back there in P number 9. But look at this, Andreas Friedrich trying to get that move done, maybe on Ryan Odo heading into turn number 4, not close enough to get the move done heading into the hairpin, while the prime overtaking opportunities around this track, which is still equally tricky because you're dealing with a long, never-ending, it feels like, left-hander of turn number 3. The weight is unsettled in this car, and when you're trying to scrub off some speed heading into that corner and try and get a move done, it is very tricky not to spin it in these Radical SR10s. But Andreas Friedrich, you gotta give the man some credit for at least having the stones to even attempt a maneuver like that. But this pack is heating up yet again with the front 4 separated by 1.2 seconds.
Yeah, that was quite a dive going back to Castro run. It seemed like he used Sorensen there to slow the car on the entry to that corner, and that is the definition of a dive bomb. So I'm feeling for Sorensen on that, but my goodness, Castro up 8 as we look at this replay. It's not coming across great. What do you see there, Ron? All right, so back to live action. It is still Odo from Friedrich, from Gonzaga, from Castro, Sorensen, Reitnen, Bjorklund, and Larson, and they are all nose to tail up to, up to Larson there, and that is a 3-second gap covering those 8 cars at the front. And here's Castro again, showing some, oh my goodness, insane aggression. Takes the outside of that hairpin. Still fighting, almost squeezes it past Gonzaga and goes again. Castro is now up 9 positions, and how is he getting it done, folks? He is stuffing that Radical into every small space that he sees. He may not be very popular in the paddock when this one is over, but Castro now on the podium with that move up into P3. Holy cow.
Castro is a shapeshifter. He's been able to put that car every single place he wants to put it. That was a bold move heading into turn number 6. Don't see a driver go for a move like that, and I think maybe ever. Even in real life, you don't see a driver go for a move like that heading into the turn after the turn 4 hairpin. But Castro putting on a beautiful maneuver to take the final podium spot in this race, and there's the replay of it, folks. Castro in that 2 car. Oh, Lord, that is some great stuff from Andrea Castro. He is impressing in this race, and pace-wise, too, he's pretty quick. Last time by, about 0.3 of a second quicker than Andres Friedrich a little bit farther up the road. I'm not too sure. Maybe Castro could try and size up a move to take P2 of this race from Andres Friedrich. Friedrich may have to kick on the afterburners, though, because we saw him try and go for the move on Odo not terribly long ago, but ever since then, he's lost a little bit of time, and if he loses even more time, he's going to fall into the crutches of Castro right behind.
Yeah, Castro has got that gap down to 0.25, Ron, and Castro has already collected some paint chips from 4 or 5 different cars. He's not going to be shy about trying on some of that black and yellow from Friedrich's car. So Friedrich's thoughts may be drifting from Odo back to Castro behind, and Friedrich also may be on comms with some of his teammates that Castro has already muscled through. So you see him taking a defensive line there. His thoughts have moved on from Odo ahead to Castro behind, and here we are on this run onto the front straight. And I wonder, Ron, what do you think Castro has planned on this lap?
I think he's maybe going to, I think he's going to stay behind, honestly, because as much as we are coming to the closing stages of this race, maybe he's going to try and play the safe role. You know what? I say that knowing fully well that I probably just commentator's jinx and he's going to go for an absolute bonsai overtake as long as he can keep it on the road. Keep it easy, Andrea Castro. He is pushing that car to the absolute limit, heading through turn number 1 and 2 at terminal velocity in these Radical SR10s. If he was an inch farther wide, he would have been in a world of hurt, but now Friedrich's in a world of hurt. Very close, careening their way through 3 and 4, down in the hairpin at 2, making contact. A hip check in the braking zone, a hip check through the corner. Castro is going to get that move done, though. Beautiful stuff from Andrea Castro. He has stolen the show in the second half of this race. He put that aggressive move on Lasse Sorensen not terribly long ago, and last time by set the fastest lap of the race as well to 123.7. So Castro is cooking with gas right now. He is on the afterburner, and I think at this point, with not too long left to go in this race, maybe he's gonna try and size it up on Odo. You know, I said he was gonna try and stay behind Friedrich, then he goes for a move heading into turn number 4. I'm gonna say it again, maybe Castro is happy with P2 and he's gonna stay behind Odo. Watch him go for an insane move on the last lap of the race now.
Well, I'll tell you, Ron, I don't know much about racing, race cars, or race car drivers, but Castro is definitely going to size up Odo. Castro has touched every car he's passed that I've seen, and he's now up 10 positions into P2 with only a half second ahead to Odo. We're on lap 16 of 18, so he's going to have 3 more runs down that straightaway to set something up on Odo. And now the question is, what is Odo going to do? I was watching him while Castro and Friedrich were fighting on that last lap, and it looked like he was getting a little loose, washing out of some of those corners. He may have overdriven those tires, and tire wear may rise up and drag Odo back into the clutches of Castro. We're going to see whatever happens is going to happen soon. Lap 16 of 18, and time ticking down on this one.
And I think we may have a Scandinavian civil war going on right outside of the top 5. Sorensen, Reinen, and Björklund covered by barely any air. You can rope Kettle Larson involved in that as well. He's right behind him, P8. You can see them side by side, hang through turn number 4 not terribly long ago. They're still covered by barely any air right now. They are losing touch to the cars a little bit farther up the road. Jorge Gonzaga is 1.5 seconds off of the leader, Ryan Odo. Sorensen, meanwhile, is about 1.5 seconds off of Gonzaga. So this, at this point, is a fight for P5, P6, P7, and P8. Kyriakopoulos, I mean, he's a little bit farther back, but considering how hard we've seen the racing be so far in this race, we could very well see Kyriakopoulos sneak his way into the top 5 if these drivers come to blows. And you can see the mad weaving going down that start-finish straightaway, trying to break that draft. And here we go. Ryan Odo is in the crutches of Castro right behind, and Castro trying to get the move done in turn number 2. I don't think so, but he is incredibly close. I think Castro is maybe gonna try and go for it into turn number 4. He doesn't have much to lose. He's not competing for an official championship. He's gonna go for it here, JR.
Oh my goodness, this is absolutely nuts, Ron. And Odo, you know, this is really kind of highlighting one of the fun things about driving these radicals. If you don't qualify particularly well and you're driving on a track with any kind of straightaway on it, the draft is going to make up for pace, and you're seeing Odo take advantage of that. He's using the draft, putting himself in position to make those passes and getting them done. And look at Odo from Castro, from Friedrich. That is 0.4 of a second. Separating all 3 of those cars with only 2 laps to go, and this one is turning into an absolute barn burner. And again, shame on you for not buying Phillip Island. Get out there and buy this track, and you can enjoy some of this mad racing. And here we are going on to the back straight. We'll have 2 more runs down the back straight. Castro all over Odo, with Friedrich lurking in the background, waiting to pick up the pieces. His teammate Gonzaga behind him. And this is the white flag lap. Odo has taken the white flag. Let's see what is going to happen here into turn 1. Castro is going to sticks it in. Odo's going to have the inside line, though, into 2, as he did with James Berry. Manages to hold him off. But Castro, we've seen him stick his nose into some of these slow hairpins. There's another one right up here, and we'll see if Castro fancies his chances here into turn 4. Chase the outside. Odo not expecting that. And what is going to happen here? Can he beat him to the exit of turn 4? Oh, not quite. But what a fight unfolding here, Ron. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, and they're still side by side heading into 6. Castro now has that inside line. Is he going to give Odo the hip check? They're still going to be side by side. They're keeping it clean for now, but heading through the fastest corners on this racetrack. They are playing with fire right now. Odo on that inside line. Now he's going to be stuck on the outside yet again, heading through the long uphill corner of turn number 10. They're being and banging doors, coming over the hill for the final time, careening their way into the hairpin at turn number 10. Odo's going to have that inside line. Castro stuck on the outside, and look at Friedrich trying to pick up the pieces. They're going to be side by side coming out of the final corner possibly, but Odo is going to be leading them, and look at the snap from Castro. He's not going to get done.
Wow, Castro has just beat that car to death for 18 laps, almost the last quarter. You see him get a little wiggle there. That is going to cost him P2 after an epic drive. Ron, he is still driver of the day, and that was absolutely insane. Although, gosh, maybe I'm not being fair to Odo. Constant pressure from a lot of good drivers throughout that one, holding off James Berry, holding off Castro there, and yeah, I'm gonna have to take that back and give driver of the day to Odo. What a show.
I think both of those drivers really earned it. Castro just for beating the brakes off the thing, and Odo for putting on a fantastic defensive showing from start to finish. Started this race in P2, got a move done on Phillip, one of the top running drivers, one of the highest ranked drivers in these Radical SR10s, and he forced him into a mistake heading through turn number 2. And just look at this, withstanding all sorts of pressure from Castro on the final laps of this race. Castro, it wasn't one opportunity. He went for every single opportunity he had at his disposal. You gotta give credit to Castro for just beating the brakes off the thing, but you gotta give credit to Odo as well for withstanding the challenge. And look at that, Castro was ahead heading into the hairpin at turn number 4 for the final time. This is a beautiful shot with the camera car of Andres Friedrich riding on board with him as these two beat and bang and rough each other up. You'll see the big contact they had. Actually, it wasn't contact, it must be said. They kept it clean throughout a vast majority of the first half of the final lap of the race. However, heading through some of these fast corners was when it got close. You could see Castro turning out of it, trying to avoid any sort of contact, then hang through turn number 10. Still incredibly close between these two, about a foot separating them, less than a foot at times, and this was the contact heading through turn number 10. A small little hip check, nothing out of line, it must be said, but Castro trying to stick it on that inside line. He was trying to beat the brakes off it, ran a little bit wide, got into the dirt. A beautiful save from Castro, it must be said. The fact he kept that car out of the barrier on the racetrack and still held on to a podium spot is truly unbelievable. But Andrea Castro with a fantastic drive from start to finish, and even with that slide coming out of turn number 11 for the final time, he nearly beat Andres Friedrich to the line. Those two were separated by only hundredths of a second after 18 laps of fantastic racing action here at Phillip Island, JR. I'll tell you what, returning to these broadcasts after about a season and a half away, I was wondering how the racing changed. Trust me, folks, it hasn't. It has always been this exciting, and it's going to be this exciting for the final 2 races of the season. That may have been one of the best Radical SR10 races I have ever seen here on Apex Racing TV. That was fantastic.
Yeah, that really was, and unfortunately, I'm looking at some of the text chat in iRacing, and I got to say that Castro's heroism is somewhat sullied by the way that he's speaking to the other drivers, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But let's get those results up for you, and Ron, maybe you can run through those for the folks.
Alrighty, sounds good. We'll run through the results from this race, and I gotta say, some drivers being a bit, I wouldn't say rude or possibly out of line when it comes to Andre Castro. He was racing hard, that's all you can say. I'll tell you what, if I was a race steward, I wouldn't really be looking at the incidents he had. That was just some hard racing from start to finish. He gave it 100% from lights to flag. But here are the results from this race. After 18 laps of racing action, it's a young man, Ryan Odo, with a car number that may be the same as his age, winning it here at the Radical Esports Cup from Phillip Island. He didn't have it easy at all throughout this race. Only a half a second between himself and Andres Friedrich after 18 laps. And Andrea Castro, who may get driver of the day in my mind, he beat the brakes off that car from start to finish. Still sneaks away with a podium result, and he put on some hellacious maneuvers to try and get every single spot he could. I believe he's also the hard charger from this race. I think, JR, you may have to fact check me on that. But looking through the rest of the field, we've got Jorge Gonzaga in 4th, Sally Reitinen in P5, Lasse Sorensen in 6th, Andre Björklund rounds out the top 7, Kettle Larson got to finish in P8, James Barry in P9, and I gotta wonder how that fight at the north end of the field would have shaken out if the Brit was up there. He's always been fast, however, a small little incident with a little bit of netcode involved as well, heading through turn number 2, takes him out of that fight. That's going to be Dennis Kyriakopoulos rounding out your top 10, and looking through the rest of the field, we have John Petchthik in P number 11, Heinz Braun in 12th, Mika Hulkinen in P13, Paolo Gori in P14, Gordon Haug in 15th, Luca Leone in 16th, Matt A. Armstrong in P number 17, Apex Racing TV Zone, Avery McDonald P number 18, Andrew Karlowski, I probably butchered that pronunciation, in P19, Melvin Ayers in P number 20, and Christoph Lipp with an early incident. The driver that started this race from the pole is going to end up the last of the drivers classified in that 3 car. He's going to end up in 21st. And JR, I think we have some drivers waiting in the interview waiting area. Would you like to have a chat with Jorge Gonzaga?
You know, I'm running out of gas on the vocal cords here, Ron, so I'm going to hand off Jorge to you. Welcome to the booth, Jorge, and Ron Mons is here with you.
Alrighty, while I'm having this chat with Jorge Gonzaga, I'll pass you a cough drop, JR. But Jorge, thank you for joining us in the commentary booth. That looked like an incredibly intense race here at Phillip Island, up and down the field. Talk us through it today. Oh, and Jorge, are you, can you hear us? Yeah, hopefully we can get this audio issue sorted out with Jorge Gonzaga. I will stall for a little bit to give Jorge Gonzaga an opportunity to get his microphone up and running. It's always nice to have a chat with Jorge in these races. So Jorge, hopefully you can get their microphone fixed. Fingers crossed we can get this fixed, because it's always nice to have a chat with you at the end of... Oh, there we go. There we go. Tech issues, a broadcaster's worst nightmare. Don't worry about that, Jorge. Stuff happens. So Jorge, a very hard fought and exciting race for all of you drivers here in the Radical Esports Cup. So talk us through the drama that we saw today here at Phillip Island.
Yeah, it's actually one of the most challenging tracks on the calendar. I'm really happy that we included this this season. You know, it's a bit of a change from the usual tracks. This track is so challenging. The tire temps is just insane. If you keep pushing on the exits, you're going to burn the tires, and eventually you're going to have massive issues on the end of the race. So it's a balance between managing attack and kind of conserving tires, like braking early, short shifting. It's so challenging, and the best thing of it is the entertainment, because you get such door-to-door battles, as you could see on the final laps. It's a really fun track, and I'm really happy that they included it in the calendar this year.
Well, I think I'm very happy as well, because from my perspective here on the broadcast booth, that was absolutely awesome. I think if I were joining you drivers here in this race, I would have enjoyed it as well. But we've got some fantastic races coming up here from the Radical Esports Cup, Sebring and the Nordschleife, to round things off. So how do you think the Sebring round... Actually, no, we'll stay on the subject of Phillip Island. I'll ask you about Sebring in a little bit. I believe, if I'm very much mistaken, you also run in the Radical European Championship here on Apex Racing TV this upcoming Sunday. It's going to be another round here at Phillip Island. So how is it kind of running this track here in the officials, and how much of that experience kind of carries over to those league races coming up on Sundays?
Well, that's the thing. Like I said, it's a balance between attacking and conserving the tires. And obviously on the officials is more of a sprint race, so you need to attack more. But at the same time, the officials is a good practice to kind of find that rhythm where you're able to save fuel, save tires, but still be within the mid 24s. So this race was a really good practice for Sunday, because it's good. It's a completely different dynamic when you're racing for 45 minutes and by all means, I've done a lot of testing this week. I'm really considering swapping tires on the pit stop on Sunday because, the front right, it just takes a battering the whole race. The officials is a really great opportunity to practice for the European Championship. And today the roster was amazing. Like all the great drivers from that league were here. So it was a great opportunity to test ourselves against them. I think I did well considering the grids, but I'll still keep working for Sunday. Yeah.
And so to go back to the question I was going to ask right before that, Sebring coming up in 1 week's time, and from my experience here last season, this combination with the SR10 at Sebring is an absolute hoot. So how do you think that race is going to be in 1 week's time?
Well, I feel bad for whoever has sim motion rigs. Because Sebring is insane. It's so bumpy. It's so tricky. His characteristic is a fun track. For me, that's going to be my hard push for the rest of the season because, as JR knows, I hate Nürburgring, so I'm going to stay away. And I'm fighting for the P3. I think overall I'll be able to get a P5. So I'm going to put all the cards in Sebring. I really need to get a good result there. I need to do at least 165 points. That's going to be my goal. And Nürburgring, I'll just do it for fun because I'll probably crash in the first lap anyway. So, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't sell yourself that short, Jorge Gonzaga. You never know with these Radical SR10 races, and also the note about anyone with a motion rig in 1 week's time. I'll tell you what, from my experience driving around Sebring in this sim, I'm surprised when I did an in-race interview here 1 season ago, my voice wasn't sounding like this as I was driving around the track. But Jorge Gonzaga, thank you for joining us here in the commentary booth. Is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Yeah, actually, I haven't been here for a while, so I have a lot of people to shout out. So first of all, James for his 3rd championship of the officials. Like, it's the first time we have a 3-time champion. So a great shout out to him. A shout out to my team. Insert name. We're doing amazing. We're occupying the 4 top spots on the championship. It just reflects how this season is going for us. Is really amazing. To you guys, and actually, can I do a really good shout out to Joshua? He's always on the background, and he's a magician on the controls and on the production, and he does such an amazing job every week. And a big shout out to him, but obviously to JR and to you, Ron. Welcome back. You guys are the dynamic duo. I'm really happy you guys are back. Obviously, all the other commentators in Apex, they're really amazing. Avery is also very amazing. Tom. But, you guys have a really good dynamic, so a big shout out to you guys.
Alrighty, well, thank you very much for the kind words, Jorge, and excited to see you back out on track at Sebring in 1 week's time, and keeping the fingers crossed that good result you're looking for is going to be on this Friday 2100 GMT broadcast here on Apex. So, Jorge, thank you for joining us. Congratulations on the P4, and excited to see you back out on track for both the Radical European Championship broadcast and the officials in 1 week's time. Thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah. See you Sunday. Bye-bye.
All right, and that was Jorge Gonzaga, your P4 finisher, and as he said, he's sitting pretty on the season points as well, along with his 3 teammates. So really great stuff there. And let's see here, as we're wrapping up, let's just talk about what we got coming up on Apex Racing TV this weekend. We're not just about these fantastic radicals, and with some of the other series taking the weekend off, we have got you covered. Tune in Saturday for round 3 of the European Sports Car Championship at Imola, and then on Sunday, as we've been saying, the Radicals will return here to Phillip Island for 2 races, both the European and American Radical Sim Racing Championships, and that's actually 4 races because they each have a sprint and a 45-minute feature. And Monday, we'll start the week off strong with the Rikmatech World Challenge, bringing multi-class sports car racing to Fuji. So you want to subscribe to Apex Racing TV and hit that notification icon so that you don't miss anything. And my goodness, Ron, what a fantastic race. And if I neglected to mention it before, get out there and buy Phillip Island. It is an absolute blast. You will not regret it. And as always, thank you so much for joining us. Happy Friday and have a fantastic weekend.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.